Henry Knox certainly completed the journey from Ticonderoga to the American siege lines outside Boston in early 1776. But what about the cannon that he took with him on his expedition? Did every one of them complete the journey? In December of 1775, Knox enumerated for Washington a total of 59 cannon, mortars, and howitzers that he started the expedition with. They were slowed over the course of December by weather and a lack of transportation, but by the beginning of January 1776, with the assistance of General Philip Schuyler, who had assembled sufficient teamsters, sleds, and draft animals, the journey could begin. The biggest danger was not interdiction by the British, but rather crossing the frozen waterways that intersected their route, particularly the Mohawk and the Hudson River. Schuyler, though, had issued explicit orders to mitigate these dangers by attaching long lines of rope to the guns so that if they did fall through the ice, they could be attached to a buoy and their location preserved and identified. This is exactly what happened outside of Albany when one of the guns did crack through the icy Hudson. But the buoy marking its location helped it to be recovered when the citizens of Albany came out and helped to haul the gun out of the river where it continued on its way. However, despite these precautions, a few days earlier, another gun had already fallen through the Mohawk River. Knox had been riding ahead of the expedition and was about to sit down for dinner when news came that one of the guns on his expedition had gone through the ice. He raced backwards to check on its condition and redirected the expedition to another crossing of the Mohawk, hoping that no more guns would suffer its fate. They all crossed successfully, and the rest of the expedition continued, making its way to Framingham, Massachusetts, where they joined the Continental Army. But what about that gun that fell through the Mohawk? It was never recovered. Here at Fort Ticonderoga, though, in the 1940s, the museum acquired a cannon that was believed to be the gun that fell through the ice. It was actually dredged out of the Mohawk River earlier in the 20th century and put on display at an historical society. Almost was destroyed during the Second World War when it was contributed to a drive for scrap metal to send back to America's enemies. In fact, it had been broken into pieces to prepare for this fate when curators at Fort Ticonderoga and the Watervliet Arsenal stepped in to salvage the gun, reassemble it, and bring it back here to the museum as a survivor of Knox's expedition. However, it was an iron 6-pounder. We know, however, now that based on careful research, that could not have been the gun that Knox lost on the Mohawk. When the cannon were dropped off in Framingham, they were visited by John Adams. Adams, in his diary, made a careful inventory of all the number and types of cannon that he saw there, which differs from Knox's correspondence with Washington by a single gun, 58, that ultimately made their way to Framingham. The one discrepancy being an iron 18-pounder, which was one of the largest guns that Knox took with him, as he describes the gun that fell through the Mohawk, which means that the gun that we have at the museum could not have been the one that Knox lost in early 1776, begging the question of what that iron 6-pounder was doing on the bottom of the Mohawk and preserving the mystery of what happened to that lost 18-pounder early in 1776. Despite this, that one gun that was lost on the expedition did not materially affect Knox's expedition and the success that he brought to the Continental Army, providing them with the firepower and confidence they needed to evict the British from the city of Boston and deliver General Washington his first victory of the Revolutionary War.